Well, there you have it. England were in with a shout at the halfway point. Certainly started in blistering fashion after the loss of an early wicket. But at the end, the statistics, the history, India's domination in T20 internationals, particularly whenever they've batted first and put on a big total, continues to happen. 224 was what India got, and England finishing 36 runs short of that. 188 for 8 in isolation would have won them most of the games in this series, but India just batted them out, and that was the difference. The mere 36 runs in the entire series. Closely fought, 3-2 to India, but I think positives to take ahead to that T20 World Cup and beyond to the one-day series for both sides. To look back at that and discuss so much more, Joy Bhattacharya and Michael Vaughan. Michael, I'll come to you first. Almost by the time that wicket fell, after that first wicket or second wicket partnership rather, it seemed a foregone conclusion, but still plenty of positives for England to take out from the series as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, a great series, really, really good series to cover. Plenty of real skill on offer. I just look at England and I don't think they adapted. I think if you look at the 5 games, they came out of the traps with quick bowling hard into the pitch, worrying a few of the Indian players with that ball coming through chest high, hip high, and that worked. And then India got better at playing it. And from then on, really, England didn't really adapt the lens, didn't bring in more skill, not a great deal of variation with slow balls. The batting lineup, at the top, it's very, very strong with Josh Buttler, David Milan at 3. We know what Morgan and Stokes can do, but it's just a bit too left-hand heavy in that middle order. I just think they need to find a right-hand finisher. We saw it again today. So it's not doom and gloom. If you're ever going to have a series where you find out a few things that you need to improve upon, this is the series to do it for England, and they have to then go away, come back with a couple of new solutions for the time of the World Cup in a few months' time. Moeen Ali didn't get a game, only using 12 players. Could they have used more players? Could they have just brought in a right-hand finisher in Sam Billings at number 6 and 7? So, yeah, there's a few things that England can ask and look at. They'll be proud that they've taken a really strong Indian team until the last game. They won a couple of good games, but ultimately, India were too strong. They were too good. And that combination that India stumbled across by putting Virat to open, I really do think it's going to change the way that people look at this India T20 team. They all talk of India being the powerhouse and the best team in the world in T20 cricket. I don't, because they haven't won a T20 World Cup for a long time. They should win the next T20 World Cup. You add Jasprit Bumrah, Ravi Jadeja into this lineup. They have got all the combinations covered, left hand, right, and left arm, right arm, spin, pace, you name it. This Indian T20 team has absolutely everything there.
Yeah, Joy, we'll come and complete the India story, as it were, to wrap up the series. But just sticking on England for a moment, interesting if you look back and look at the impact individuals have had. Who's been the quickest, the meanest bowlers? Wood and Archer. Who's looked the most lethal hitter? Possibly Josh Buttler. Who's had the best catch of the tournament? Possibly Chris Gordon. But there have been individual bits of brilliance. But I think Michael Vaughan hit the nail on the head. They didn't adapt, and that may be the 36 runs, the difference in the end.
Absolutely. A, they didn't adapt. B, they didn't improve. Day one, they were looking the more dangerous side. 2 really express bowlers, very difficult to hit. Arch is very difficult to hit. Wood is express pace. Adil Rashid doing a great job up front. They looked the side. And the point of it was, India did a far better job of interpreting the English attack and the English, batters than batsmen, then England did. It was a case of adaptation. It was a case of the guys who worked hard at saying what we can do. I have one more point out here, and I genuinely believe that because Indian subcontinental pitches are so unforgiving, okay, by and large, you'll see Indian, Pakistan, Sri Lankan, Bangladeshi bowlers better at the slower, at the knuckle, the variation, simply because they need it more. Conditions don't swing. The ball doesn't swing that much. So you need to do more things with the ball. You need to create more options with the ball which are there. And that's the one thing that was really missing in most of the English. They didn't have, as Michael was talking about, that really good slow ball. And every India bowler on display today had at least 2-3 slow ball versions. I mean, Bhuvi has a behind the arm, he has a knuckle, he has a slightly off spinner kind of delivery. They have a lot of variety of slow balls, not just one slow ball. And I think in these conditions, and again, you're going to face these very similar conditions. Remember, this is spring. When we come back, I mean, whatever passes for spring in this part of the world, when you're going to come back in October, conditions and times, temperatures will be very similar to this. So, you're going to find exactly the same conditions. They need more variety for their bowlers to learn, because these bowlers are very good bowlers. You don't want to change the likes of Archer and Wood, but they need to have a little more, a few more weapons in their armory when they come back.
Yep, fair call. And I think, Michael, if you look at even India's bowling, in that first 10 overs, maybe they didn't use those cutters, the slow balls as much. They had, of course, a slightly new look attack with Natarajan in there as well, and Hardik went for a few in that second over. So when they were not using that enough, England got that partnership going, looked as if they were threatening, and then with that slightly older white ball, things started changing. Have a look at those 7 wickets that fell, and the runs obviously dried up.
Yeah, I mean, and the key was Bhuvneshwar. He's a magnificent bowler, and he's the kind of bowler that England should be really studying. And the likes of Sam Curran, Chris Jordan, Mark Wood, Mark Wood bowls at 90 odd miles an hour. You don't want to take that away from him, but if he could add a skill or two to his bowling, i.e. a slow ball or two that's just slightly different, I think it's going to add to the team, and it's going to add to England's performance levels, because Bhuvneshwar tonight was you could argue was the difference between the two sides. To bowl his 4 overs, 2 for 15, an economy rate of under 4 on a pitch that the ball was travelling into the stand on a regular basis is nothing short of remarkable. And he's bowled 90 miles an hour, bowls 80 miles an hour, but he gets close to the stumps. He's got all the variations of slow balls like Joy has mentioned. And I don't think he bowls to the data. And by what I mean by that is I think England throughout this series has bowled into the pitch because the data says that Hardik Pandya, for instance, has a lesser strike rate when you get the ball to chest high. So what has Hardik Pandya done? He's gone away and worked on the pull shot, because he knows England are going to go ball into that square that says his strike rate's at 110. His strike rate when you pitch it full is about 190. Whereas, England have got to understand that if you're going to just bowl to the data, well, teams will know that data as well. They've all got the computer, they've all got the analysts, and they'll tell them the data, and they'll just wait for those kind of deliveries. So that's why I look at someone like Bhuvneshwar Kumar, and I think he just studies the batsman. He stares at the batsman's feet, and he watches the batsman's feet, and then he, at the last minute, bowls the ball that's the hardest ball for that batter to hit at that given ball. And that's why he's a wonderful bowler. He's got the swing, he's got the cutters, he's got the back of the hand, and he's also got the mind. He's got the mind, and he's very, very clever. Very difficult to copy, but if there's one thing from this series that I would say to England to try and copy, it'd be Bhuvneshwar Kumar's bowling.
There's something about the body language, Joy, when we see him on song, say for the Sunrisers, or of course when he plays for India as well. Just toss the ball to him, you feel reassured. Because when he came on to bowl and took that key wicket, things were not looking good. England were definitely on top, and he got that breakthrough.
No, absolutely. Just exactly what you said. 127 for 2 and 12. That's when Kohli throws the ball to him. 127 for 2 and 12. And look, I've met him. I've spent quite a bit of time with him, and he's exactly that. So I asked him that, you always look as if you're at the high school. He said, look, it's like I am, as a bowler, I'm fatalistic. I know that there are days when whatever I bowl to Chris Gayle, he's going to hit me on the ground. So there's no point thinking about it in my head. I just bowl the best ball I can. So, a lot of bowlers are reactive to batsmen, in the sense that, okay, what is this batsman going to do? He thinks of saying that, okay, what's my best ball to this guy, not how he's using the crease or not. So he forces the batsman to react rather than reacting to what the batsman is trying to do by moving around the crease and shifting. So he's very calm about it. And the other thing is, because of the way he bowls, his action, he has the ability to change late as well. So, if the batsman, for example, he has the ability to follow you when you're trying to go, okay, this guy's just backed away towards the leg side, let me bowl a little wider so he hits it. That's exactly what happened. He just bowled a little bit wider, and that forced Butler to hit it up in the air. So that's the kind of ability that he has. And it's also about in bowlers being able to be a late decision maker and still bowl the ball accurately is a huge it's worth 5 extra kilometers per hour or 10 extra kilometers per hour as a bowler. That ability.
Interesting, Michael. Given that we're just trying to sum up the series from both teams, and sticking to Bhuvneshwar Kumar for the moment, sometime possibly on Cricbuzz Combox, we mentioned that progression from 124 to 224 over a course of 5 games. But you would imagine that if the scores are going exponentially higher, the bowlers are probably going to go exponentially lower. But that is where I think Bhuvneshwar's plus point will be even greater. In the highest scoring match of all, he comes up with figures like this, and that will be the hugest plus for India.
Yeah, but you just look at his consistency across all the series. He's just obviously a bowler that the batters are finding very, very difficult. He generally sets the tone with the first over. He gets a bit of movement, bit of swing either way. So I think as a batsman, you can't line him up. I don't think it's just an outswing that you can line up, give yourself a bit of space and whack it through the offside as a right-hander. He cramps them with that ball that comes back. Jason Roy will tell you all about that delivery. He's just got the skills. He's got the skills and he's got the mind and he's got the cricket brain. And I think that's so important in T20 cricket, in all aspects of cricket. You've got to have a cricket brain when you're bowling. You've got to be thinking, what is the batsman going to try and do to me? And what is the hardest ball for that batter to try? In the first 6, the batsmen are trying to whack you out the ground. They're trying to get the team off to a flyer. So he knows that ball coming back into the right-hander is the hardest ball to do so, because you're restricting the batter of any kind of width, of any kind of freedom to release the hands. And he bowls the perfect length. He bowls that in-between length. He doesn't bowl it so full that it's a half volley that you can kind of use your hands to whip it either way. He bowls that in-between length that probably goes just over the top of off stump or just over the top of middle stump to someone like a Jason Roy. And then you add in that ability when the ball gets a bit older to bowl the cutters, the slow ball, the wide Yorker, the straight Yorker, the leg stump Yorker. He's got everything. It's a joy to watch. When you see a bowler like him bowl, and we always praise Mystery Spin and Jofra and Mark Wood for bowling 95 miles an hour. But when I see someone like Bhuvneshwar just come up and bowl 80 odd miles an hour, but produce skill, I just think it's a joy. I think it's a real pleasure to be able to see someone deliver that amount of skill under the pressure that these bowlers are under.
And yeah, since we talked, Joy, about Buttler being the key for England and what kind of form he's been in, Bhuvneshwar versus Buttler, we like our little matchups. If Bhuvi's won that battle 3 times, he's got him out. That India are probably going to finish on top more often than not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very crucial thing, because Buttler is an enforcer up front for England, and they've been forced to. He's a great finisher as well, and he plays Rajasthan that Royal. But right up front, he's the enforcer. When Roy goes, Buttler took over charge and said, "Okay, I'm going to enforce the run rate." And Malan at that point was still playing around, and it's Buttler who pushed it. And then my point is that Bhuvi knows also he has enough cricket skill to know who's that key batsman also. And his captain must be telling me, I need you to get this guy. And when he came back for his second spell, if you remember whatever they showed us on the field of, Virat talking to him, he knew that, get me a wicket, do something now. Because, at that point in time, the match it wasn't even 50-50. I'd say it was about 55, 52, 53, 47, England in favor of England.
Yep, certainly it was a turnaround, but just to look at England's collapse, if you could call it that, Michael, and if you had to do a post-mortem purely from the batting perspective, are there any causes for concern, or in this match would you just say it was the pressure of the number of runs they had to chase?
Well, I think in this game it's the pressure. Once you're chasing over 220, 1 or 2 low overs, and that rate's going to get to a very difficult rate, particularly when you lose wickets. The new batter going out there has got to pretty much strike it from ball 1. It's very difficult. Butler's outstanding, and the problem with Butler being outstanding is that he's so good at the top of the order, but he's so good in the middle of the order. He's the finisher, and England haven't replaced that right-handed finisher. So it's all right, put Butler to the top of the order, but they have to find a right-hander that can bat at 6, or 7 or 5, whenever that right-hander needs to come in, to be able to manoeuvre the tactics away from what is introduced in this series to all the left-handers of Morgan, Stokes, Sam Curran. England have learned that what they've delivered in this series, I don't think it'll be enough to win them the T20 World Cup. But they must now go away and go, okay, how do we get a batting lineup that's a little bit more harder to bowl to, and also a couple of different bowling options that could produce more magic on these kind of surfaces. Sorry.
I think maybe that's about how England are feeling at the moment, Michael, so that's fine.
Yeah, sorry.
Just looking at the games, Joy, for the series, I mean, trying to sum up in the words of Hardik Pandya, possibly, he's what he said at the end in the fact that personally, he's looked at fine-tuning his action. Obviously, it's work. He's bowled 4 overs, bowled them effectively. But overall, as a unit, they talked about wanting to break that jinx. We're okay. We cannot constantly think of, okay, we had a great chasing side. Kohli's a chase master. You're not going to get that every time. So what if you are batting first in that T20 World Cup, in a knockout fixture? Well, you answered a question today. Among the biggest gains of the series, Joy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, in fact, that I noticed that from the reaction that Kohli had the moment they lost the toss. So yeah, it's okay. You would have liked to bat, you would have liked to bowl as well, but it's perfectly all right. So you can make out that he's not just talking to the commentator. He's not just talking to Karthik out there. He's talking to his own team. He's reinforcing a message that's gone in saying, dude, it doesn't matter whether we win the toss every time and get to bowl. We've got to make it sure that we are toss resistance, as you say. You've got to be, reinforce yourself against that toss happening, and that's exactly what they did. And that messaging comes from the very top. And I think this is something that one of the things that I think Ravi Shastri and Virat Kohli do very well as a unit, and maybe with the rest of the think tank, is say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to decide to do this. We're going to blood young players. We're going to learn that we're going to chasing is what we do well, but we are going to learn to bat first and win as well. And these are definitive goals, and this is where Virat works best. I don't think Virat is the best tactical captain on a field. There are better brains on the field tactically, situational analysis. But in terms of somebody who can see a long-term vision for Indian cricket and say, I want these guys to be fit, I don't really care. I want that we become a side that is as good batting first as chasing. These are things that Virat does well. Set targets for a unit, get himself behind it, lead from the front, and try and say, guys, we're going to achieve this over this period of time. That's what he's really good at. And I think that's whenever people look at him in the balance as a captain versus a tactical captain, and there are other guys who are looking, you see them when you swing that they are instinctively better captains of the field. That is the one thing Virat brings that not everyone else gets.
But from Owen Morgan's point of view, and we'll try and bring you what he's saying, his first comment really was a great learning experience. I think as a winning side or as a side who finished second best, the one thing you'd want to take, be it going into the ODI series or, of course, to that T20 World Cup, are the key learnings. We've been trying to discuss the learnings from Team India, but I think in that dressing room, the England dressing room, Michael, they will be talking about their key learnings. What are the areas they can improve?
Yeah, like we've been saying, I think the variations with the ball, I think they were a little bit one-dimensional. And that combination in the middle of the innings, I think they need a right-handed finisher. England are very similar to India, that they've almost got too many options. The depth of the squads are so big that you could put David Malan at the top of the order and push Bairstow to 3. There's all sorts of different combinations that either team could go with. By losing in this series, they should take the 2 wins and go, okay, what did we do well in those games? But is that going to work in every single game of a T20 World Cup? Possibly not. So we've just got to be a bit smarter potentially with selection. I do think the seamers have to produce better skills. I do think they have to produce 1 or 2 different slower deliveries for the T20 World Cup. But it's a great profile to be playing 5 matches in the same conditions that you're going to be playing a T20 World Cup in 8 months' time. So it's just that right-handed finisher. I just think they need to replace what Josh Butler bought. It's very difficult because he's outstanding, but they're going to have to try and find a right-handed finisher in that middle order.
Yeah, perhaps a suggestion was someone like a Sam Billings, but we leave that topic for another day. Focusing again on India, we alluded to it at the start of the game. Their record, batting first, putting on big totals in series deciders. Let's just have a look at T20 series deciders at home since August 2019 and have a look at the ones against West Indies and Sri Lanka. 240 for 3, won by 67 runs. 201 for 6, won by 78. And today, 224 for 2. every single time they have actually batted first, put on a big total, and then the bowlers obviously have done the job, but their job, perhaps, Joy, made a tad bit easier with the pressure of the runs.
Absolutely. I think that's the one thing that they have, that experience. Again, these guys are playing so much high level international cricket. And again, I say that yes, the English players would have also played a lot of cricket, but a lot of times, all our cricketers have played 4-5 years, 3-4 years of hardcore IPL cricket. So they're used to that kind of pressure situation. And all they're telling each other is 1 wicket. We need 1 wicket. Whoever comes in is not going to be easy. Because chasing 10 or 12, 13, which is what the score, what you needed to chase almost throughout the innings, is not easy walking in cold. And that's what they're saying. They just, that this unit has that calmness to say, it's okay, we'll get that 1 wicket. We just need that 1 wicket. Once that happens, everything's going to go. And that is the confidence that a lot of this format cricket is about. High pressure T20 format cricket is about the Indian team. That confidence and that ability to be calm under pressure.
Michael, I was just glancing over. There was an image of Virat Kohli walking over to have a chat, and he was holding a cutout of a car, a sponsor's car. It just put a symbol into my mind of the progression of his innings. It was like first couple of games, starting trouble, didn't quite get it started, first gear, second gear, and then he just found a highway. And once he found that, there were no exits, there were no places to stop.
No, I mean, he was beautiful today. That ability to just bat, make it look very, very simple. To just give the striker, Rohit Sharma, the strike, just to get off strike, knowing that Rohit was smashing it to all parts. Suryakumar Yadav came out at number 3, did exactly the same. What did Virat do? Smart. Just allow the striker to just take the guard. And, by him moving to the top of the order, he has to stay there. And for the RCB in the IPL, he has to stay there because he can just control the whole innings. 120 balls. He faced 52 today. If he faces half of the 120, and I'd back him to do that consistently, probably 70 to 75% of the time in T20 cricket by just playing conventionally. He doesn't need to do anything. If he can just bat, it just allows the firecrackers to just go out there, give themselves a couple of balls and then go. So I think he's found something, and I think his team have found something that could be very powerful, not just in T20 cricket, but who knows, it could happen because you've got so many options from 3 down to number 7, so many different variables that India could go with. But that combination that I mentioned earlier, Sehwag and Sachin Tendulkar, I don't like it because I know how powerful India are going to be. Virat and Rohit walking out, it's going to intimidate a lot of teams around the world.
And he even sounded intimidating. I mean, normally Virat tends to be a little reserved. Once he's won a game, give credit to the others. Yeah, okay, we were slightly better than the opposition, but he didn't hold back. He said we outplayed the opposition in every department, and it was true. He didn't mince his words. And of course, as man of the series, he'd be very quietly pleased with his own performance, Joy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Virat's greatest quality, and they say the quality of a great team is they win bad matches when they're less than fluent. And I think Virat was exactly that. He was less than fluent when the series started. Even today, he was less than fluent. He was not his commanding self from bowling. But that ability to play yourself into form and end up at 150, and that intelligence to say, if I stay around another 5 balls, 10 balls, I'm going to hit it better. I don't need to press on. Rohit's hitting it beautifully now. I can take the single, give it to him. I can take the single, give it to Surya, and just hit the bad ball for now. That thing of ability, a lot of batsmen, and it separates them. A lot of batsmen, when they're off form, just go out. Great batsmen somehow struggle, stay there, and suddenly you'll see they're at 100 while striking at 140 and 150. That's Virat. That's why. See, on good days, if 60% of your days are good days, Virat will get those 60%. But he'll again also get 15% of bad days, which is converted into good days. Today was one of those.
Virat, I was going to say Virat. Freudian slip. Michael, you seem to have a telepathic connection to Virat Kohli. So it was, as I said, Freudian slip. Because 2 things that you mentioned just a moment ago has been echoed by Virat Kohli a moment later. One, he has said he will open in the IPL. Two, he has said if this sort of partnership flourishes, i.e. him and Rohit Sharma, it's something he's hinted, not unequivocally, that it's likely to come back again.
Yeah, and why not? T20 cricket is generally played on decent surfaces. The ball doesn't swing and hoop around. So there's no real worry that you're sending out your best player to face a moving ball. The white ball, let's be honest, for 4 or 5 years, it's done nothing. It might swing for an over or two. Virat can cope with that. So I just think it's a sensible approach to try and get your best players to face as many balls as possible. And that goes to 50 over cricket as well. There's 300 balls in 50 over cricket. Why wouldn't you want someone like Virat to get out there and showcase his skills as early as possible? And the only time that you can guarantee that you're going to get in early is to open. Now, he could bat anywhere, but I just think they've found something. And I think the RCB in the IPL are going to be a lot stronger by having Virat Kohli at the top of the order. He will be so consistent on those wickets. It's if you ask any batsman that's worth any kind of salt, where would you like to bat in India? And you go, I'll open the batting, please. Doesn't matter who you are, how you play. I'd like to open the batting, please. So Virat's going to have I think he's going to have some fun over the next few months opening the batting. We're going to see some fine innings.
Joy, that's brave of Michael Vaughan. He's put those suggestions out there, much to the detriment of the English national cricket team and the Mumbai Indians. Both his
exactly. I just said, I was just thinking about it and said that he's immediately increased his chances of another IPL team calling him right now by 50%. I said RCB is just now on the phone saying, if Virat's listening to this guy, we need to listen to him right now. Oh, absolutely. I think Michael's hit it bang on. He's just, if you get something like that, and I go back to what you said right at the start when you're talking about it, with Virat opening. Remember, you mentioned Sachin, 1994, Sidhu, Auckland, that whole story. Could this be Virat's Auckland? That's what all of us are asking. That is this the place at the time that he turns around and says he's going to do it? And look, Virat plays, he loves his RCB, but he also, I think he loves Indian colours more than anything else, and who would blame him for that? If he is deciding to open throughout the IPL, that's clearly also sending a message to selectors saying, that's a position I want to play in the World Cup. Because he's not going to play the entire IPL opening just to go back to number 3 necessarily. He's also saying that, this is my position. This is where I'm planning to make a stand. Guys, think of me in that position. He's correct in that way of saying that, I can't say I'll open for India because that's a decision for coaches and all. But it's easier for him to say for the IPL that, that's a decision he can take much more freely in the IPL. But I think he's clearly signaling that direction.
And do you know what, Joy? He's at the stage of his career. He probably wants a new challenge. And by opening the batting today, he probably was out there and thinking, this is so enjoyable. I'm the best player and I'm dictating the game from being in that number 1 spot. And it just allows the Rohits, it allows the Yadavs, it allows the Hardik Pandyas to just go. And they can just go. Rishabh Pant, he wasn't even required today. Shreyas Iyer wasn't required today. Remarkable, really, when you're thinking about a T20 game where a team's got over 220 and Rishabh Pant's not got any. He didn't even face the ball. So I just think it's you sometimes in your career you get this new challenge that arrives, and you go, this is fantastic. This is just what I need at this stage in my career. And I think he's going to have some glory. He's going to have some glory. You never know. The RCB by Virat opening, it might just get to those qualifiers. You never know.
The more you said that, Michael, the more I'm getting the image of this neighborhood bully. It's my bat, it's my ball. Now that I've done so well, I'm going to open the batting. I'm going to do exactly as I please. But another interesting comment he put in there, Michael, since we've been talking about how he loves the India colours as well. In the same breath as mentioning, yes, I'll open for RCB, he's been keeping an eye out for the possibility that India may play a few T20 internationals more before that T20 World Cup. Someone's busy making those schedules happen. It'll be useful for India.
Yeah, useful. I mean, I'm sure most teams will have a few warm-up games before the T20 World Cup. And I would think that most countries around the world would like to be playing India if they possibly can. It brings in a few quid. So most boards around the world, now they've heard Virat say they want to play a few more games, I would say that probably Saurav Ganguly's phone is going hot now.
Yeah, well, I suspect it's going to be more than just the warm-up games, Joy. It's possibly South Africa, New Zealand visiting in October. We haven't visited Sri Lanka for the last 10 minutes. So, I mean, a tour to Sri Lanka is due.
No, I'm just tour to Sri Lanka immediately reminds me of the 90s in India. 90s in India, where's the Indian team they're sitting? They were more likely to find them in the Taj Samudra than you find them anywhere else. Half the time they'd be touring Sri Lanka. But yeah, those are memories that I don't want to remember. This would be a brilliant Sri Lankan side those days. But yeah, they will do it. And, that's the thing in Indian cricket now. That advantage they have, that, Virat and Ravi, they're going to turn around and say, we want to play 6 more matches in this period, preferably with good teams, preferably in subcontinent countries, something like that. And somebody's going to get on the phone and say, you said it, it's going to be done. Because they are not...
And knowing, Joy, that the Asia Cup is also, we were expecting that to happen, but we know now that will be Sri Lanka a year later.
Yeah, I think they're going to replace it, and there's no way they're not going to have more matches at that period of time. India's not going to allow a big gap before the World Cup and not allow their guys to do it because they've got a good tune-up in the IPL. See, I think what's going to happen is at the end of the IPL, they'll say, I think they already know roughly who their 15 is, but maybe, those players 12 to 18 are the players that they're thinking about now. Who are those 12 to 18 players? Those last 6 players are what's probably being debated. And once they get that basic unit up, they're going to say, okay, we're going to give these guys a chance. So IPL, they'll set their squad, and at the end of the IPL, they'll just test it out over the next few matches.
Well, that wraps up the 5-match T20 International Series. There was a time when we'd look at this as a third preferred format. Test matches, a couple of ODIs, sneak in a T20. Now it's almost turned on its head. 5 T20 internationals. Looking ahead at a T20 World Cup. But just take a pause. We've got some of those 50-over creatures coming our way. 3 of them to be exact, as the entire cricketing caravan moves to the western point. Well, it doesn't actually move west. It moves technically east from Ahmedabad to Pune, up the Western Ghats. So I've got to get the geography right. But yeah, we're going to be in the same vicinity. 3 of them in Pune, starting on the 23rd. That is Tuesday. Now, we may use the word irrelevant for the format. But Michael, I'm going to come to you first. It's still white ball. It's still essentially very similar nucleus of the 2 teams. So how would you like to see them continue to use this as preparation for a similar format?
Well, the next 50-over World Cup's in India as well. So I think England are at that planning stage. I'll be amazed if we don't see Moeen Ali. I think we'll see someone like Liam Livingstone as well. I hear Jofra Archer is going to have an injection in his elbow. And the rumour over here is that he'll miss the IPL as well. It's quite a bad elbow injury. So it looks like Rajasthan might be losing their star player in Jofra Archer. England will try out a few things. I don't think Mark will play all 3 games. They'll just want to try and find some kind of combinations. Obviously, Bairstow goes back to open the batting. Butler goes back into the middle in 50-over cricket. So they'll just try and find 1 or 2 combinations. It's serious. Of course, it's international cricket, but of all the 3 formats at the minute, the 50-over format, because the next World Cup is so far away, is probably the least of the concerns for England. They'll just try and get some of the younger players some game time. Anyone that's got half a niggle will be rested. But they'll want to win. They'll want to win a game or 2. Having just lost the T20 this winter, the T20 series, as I've mentioned many times, Owen Morgan got his number 1 team. Joe Root didn't get his number 1 team for the Test series. Owen Morgan got his number 1 team, and they've lost 3-2. But it was close, and that was, all the planning process was for the T20s to have the number 1 team, knowing that the World Cup was just around the corner in India. The 50 overs, I think you'll see quite a lot of change. I honestly won't have a clue at this stage what the combinations will be, but I know it'll be different. And I know they'll give the players that have been sat in the dugout. Reece Topley, left arm, I'm sure he'll get a game. Sam Curran will get a game. Tom Curran, the brothers will play. Liam Livingstone will play. And obviously David Milan will probably stick at number 3. So, I wouldn't know. I honestly wouldn't know where they'll go, but I just know they'll try players in this next 3 games.
Big problem for England, Joy. They won't know who's going to carry the drinks if Moeen Ali plays, but they'll figure that out by the time Tuesday comes around.
But given also that it's a better place to carry drinks in Pune because Gujarat, as you know, where we played all these matches, is a dry state. So Pune, maybe, you know, the chances of the Indian players getting that nice bottle of wine in their rooms is much higher. You know, most of India's vineyards are also around that area. So yeah, I think they'll find it more relaxed conditions for them, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not sure we still get to the time when that pint or the bottle will be carried onto the field. We'll still wait for that to happen. Nice village cricket match where it happens.
Yeah, actually, those days are long over. It used to happen quite a bit in the old days, and it just recently these spoiled sports came into the game in the 50s and 60s and spoiled all those. You know, all those legendary drinkers who drink all night, get up and score a Test century next morning. Those days are over.
Michael, have you ever? I mean, I know it's not a topic we'd like to discuss, but in completely unofficial cricket, have you ever had a nice festive game where you've had an interesting beverage and then gone out to bat?
Yeah, I would say the first 5 years of my county career, every night.
Well, I must confess, the only way I could ever play this game and lose the fear of the ball was having anything with a bit of froth on top just before I went out to bat. But that's why I didn't play the game and everyone else did. But Joy, coming back to the Indian team, while the England team still looking for what their squad will be, who can play, who won't play, for India, some key names have been included in the squad. If you were on Facebook or anywhere on social media, Krunal Pandya is the first name that would come. He was all over there thanking everyone who's picked him on the side. But Prasidh Krishna, another person that we've seen up close and personal, somebody who really will want to make an impact if he could. So for players like that, the series will mean a lot.
No, exactly. And I think that's the one thing with India right now. What's happened right now is if you look at the Test series in Australia, then the Test series here, then this one-day series, this T20 series, India's problem is at this point of time, it has an embarrassment of riches. So every competition is dead serious because there's somebody fighting to get into the team. You know, that's the thing. You know, Krunal Pandya is going to say, I need to make a point. I need to get in early and do something here because that's the only way I can get. Ravindra Jadeja is going to come back at some point in time. And there's already Washington Sundar sitting out here. I need to do something out here. Akshar Patel's in the mix as well. Every one of these guys knows that they have a chance now, but there are 3-4 people in the same position who they are fighting to play against. And that's something that they are looking at very, very seriously.
In terms of the batting, we've mentioned someone like Krunal Pandya in the all-rounder role. Prasidh Krishna comes in there. Kuldeep is back in there. Let's look at Vijay Hazare Trophy numbers for Krunal Pandya. Certainly very impressive. And for someone like Bhuvneshwar Kumar mentioned, playing the Vijay Hazare Trophy, playing domestic cricket was essential for him. Quick one on Shikhar Dhawan before we move on to that. He's someone who'll want to grab this opportunity. He got a chance at the start of the T20 International Series, didn't take it.
No, he didn't. And you know, he's a fine player. I just wonder if he'll be thinking his T20 days are numbered. You know, with Virat now saying he's going to open the batting. You know, so if he does get a chance, you know, as Joyce just mentioned, you know, the competition for places is so high that you know that if you get that chance again, so Shikhar Dhawan gets out there, he's going to have to get 100. You know, I always believe that it doesn't matter what age you are. If you score 100, you're going to play again. You know, whether it's Test cricket, T20 cricket, 50 over cricket. So Shikhar, if he gets that chance, go and get 100, and then I'll have to pick him in 50 over cricket. It's just that the nature of the beast of cricket is if you score runs and you get given that opportunity to do so, make sure that you get a big number, because if you do, you'll stay in the side. If you don't, you pretty much know what's going to happen.
Also, Joy, maybe someone should tell Shikhar that it's India, England, and there's 2 other teams who are touring. It's a 4-nation tournament. So this is just the first game of that tournament. Boom! Here comes the 100.
Yeah. He doesn't like these bilateral series. So you have to invent 2 other teams for him to do well. But right now, he's looking in the rearview mirror and he's seeing Devdutt Padikkal out there. He's seeing Prithvi Shaw there. These guys have scored mountains of runs. So they're all in the rearview mirror. They're that close. They're just behind him. He's got to do something special. Age is not on his side either. And he's had a great career. He's had a fantastic career. He's come in. He's done it so much for India, especially in ICC tournaments. But this is it. He's looking and saying, if I don't make this series count, it could be a long time till I play for India next.
But in that rearview mirror, Joy, that you mentioned, my final point on this particular squad for this ODI series, the most disappointed man will have to be Prithvi Shaw. Because yes, we know everything that happened in Australia. It wasn't ideal for him. But look at this. This is ridiculous what he did in the Vijay Hazare Trophy. A double 100 against Pondicherry there. Followed that up with a couple of big hundreds against Saurashtra and Karnataka. And then that whirlwind innings against Uttar Pradesh in the final. When you see numbers like that, you've almost broken the door down. You're standing there and still get ignored. He'd be disappointed, Joy.
Absolutely. More importantly, his team won the tournament. So each of these innings counted for something. It's not just you're scoring runs while your team's not doing well. He took his team. He was a captain of the team. In the third match, he became captain. He captained them to victory. He literally, there's not a better demonstration of leading from the front. 827 runs. 827 runs. The last record was in the 720s, 730s, which was, I think, it was Devdutt Padikkal, I think, a year back or something. Was it Devdutt? It was Devdutt, I think. And that's the difference. He's almost 100 runs ahead of the record. And
it was one of our Joy Factor questions during the series, Joy.
Yeah, exactly what's happening to me. I remember the guys who won it all the way through. The guy who won it last before him is what I've forgotten. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So that's what I'm saying. Nobody has scored so many runs. He scored 100 runs more than has been scored in the history of the one-day tournament. And after that, to not get picked, he'd ask himself saying, why do we play these Vijay Hazare matches if they're not going to count for selection? I can understand his anguish.
Yep. Well, hopefully somebody will put an arm around his shoulder and put things right, because the real summary of this was the embarrassment of riches. It's not that he's been left out with any agenda. It's just there's so many other players around. So hopefully he will get his chance, Joy. But for the moment, we already had a Joy Factor question about Prithvi Shaw. So I can give you one hint. Today's answer was not Prithvi Shaw. So give it away. This one was a slightly tough one.
Yeah, it was a tough one, but I think it's something about Indian history. We tend to forget the kind of guys that we had before that. And there's so many wonderful, wonderful cricketers. So if you put it up, it's one of those questions which, I was looking at those records and saying that, who of the guys who've done well for India through the ages in Test cricket? And the question, if you can put up, if the guys can put up the question, I'll ask them again. They haven't put it up for me as yet, or have they? And I can't see it.
Yeah, there it is. The ICC Test rankings. The best players at the end of each calendar year, going back to the start of the game in 1877. The first Indian to be number one in the rankings. Joy, give away the answer now.
Yeah. Okay. So that's basically, it's a man who's very, very, one of India's greatest spinners, Bishan Singh Bedi, one of the most beautiful actions you'll ever see from a left-arm bowler. Wonderful, wonderful cricketer. And in those 70s, he was a great cricketer, not just for India, but for North Hands. And one of the greatest bowlers in the world. Pleasure to watch. Absolute pleasure to watch. A delight. In fact, Monty Panesar, that entire generation of cricketers, left-arm spinners, were inspired by Bishan Singh Bedi. Wonderful man. He's just recovered from a bit of his illness and a surgery. So wonderful to have him back, hale and hearty as well. Great, great servant for Indian cricket.
Certainly. And just a wonderful thinker of the game. We wish him a very speedy recovery to Prishan Paji. But in the meantime, on that note, who's our winner? Who's the one who spotted that? And is he someone who's more from that era? Well, we're not sure. He is one of our regulars, Tanmay Chakraborty. He's won a few of them. At least it's not our number one regular answerer. So well done, Tanmay, for picking that one up. Prishan Bedi jointly in first place with Jeff Arnold. And very, very different era. Very, very different timings that are coming up for our usual suspects and myself as we move from 20 to 50 over cricket. That is 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Indian Standard Time, 30 minutes before the match begins. Slightly earlier, obviously, possibly keeping a bit of due in mind. 1:30 local time is when the match will start. Slightly earlier in the morning for you, Michael Vaughan, but still enough cricket to look forward to.
Yeah, it should be a cracking series. Hopefully England can pick themselves up. I think it'll be tough. I think it's going to be a tough series for England. India on home shore, 3 matches, but they'll have a go. You know that if a Butler arrives or a Morgan or a Jason Roy, it'll be very competitive. But it's not going to be. England have been away for a long period of time. You just feel that it could be quite a tough series for them. They'll have to start very well on Tuesday.
They certainly will. They've lost a couple of series recently. I think the last time they played in Pune against India in a one-day international, India racked up about 350 it was. So we'll talk more about that, of course, on Tuesday. And it's going to be fun and games to talk about. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joy. And thank you to all of you for joining us on Cricbuzz Live. T20 Internationals done and dusted. Time for some 50 over cricket. We'll see you on Tuesday.